Creeptastics, to the newest Meet the Creep, where I'm joined with Nicole York, who is a very accomplished, in my opinion, author and fantastic photographer, digital artist, and she makes lots of cool, kind of creepy, kind of mysterious type stuff, which is right up my alley. So I'm really excited to meet with her and just talk about all the things she does and get to know her. And, you know, if anybody wants to join, feel free to come to the Zoom. The link is in the group if you'd like to ask any questions or anything. And also I'll be trying to keep an eye on the Facebook posts. So if you on the live thing. So if you have any questions there, you can always write them in there. And Susie, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to jump in. And hopefully there'll be some more people coming in too. So welcome, Nicole. Thanks for joining us. You are in...
Thanks for having me.
Are you in New Mexico? Is that where you are? Or where?
I am, yeah. I'm in Albuquerque.
Okay. And is that where you're from, grew up and lived all your life, or other places?
No, I'm actually a Washingtonian, so I'm from Washington State originally, but since then I have lived in Germany and North Carolina, Texas for a little while, Missouri for a little while, Colorado, and then here.
Wow, that's a
military
good amount of places. Military.
Yeah.
Have you been to Europe since, or were you a little kid when you were in Germany, or?
No, actually, it was my first duty station. So I joined the military out of high school, actually, while I was still in high school. That was my first duty station, and that's actually where I met my husband. So we met there. Our first son was born there. And then after that, we came home. And since then, we've just lived all over the States and back to Washington even once or twice. And
yeah, it's
been a long haul.
I was in Europe a few years back, and I just can't wait to go back. I loved it so much, and there's so many places I want to go over there. It's like,
yes, it's so good.
I mean, I was never into architecture or anything like that before. I didn't really know that what I was going to like about it over there, and just walking around those old buildings and castles and churches, and it's so awesome.
It is. You just can feel the history under your feet. I remember when I first got to Bavaria, and we're in the bus coming from Ramstein to Vilseck, and I'm watching Bavaria pass me by in the countryside, and it just looked like a knight in shining armor could come busting out of the trees and riding across, you know, the rolling hills and farmlands of Bavaria. These beautiful houses, these wood houses with the flower boxes in their windows. And then Christmas time in Bavaria is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. But it really is. There's such an atmosphere about places over there that is so charming. It just
it's so cool. I really want to go for Christmas sometime to all those Christmas markets over there and stuff. Seems fantastic.
It is the best thing.
So you have quite a few different things that you're into as far as being author, photographer, artist, plus probably other ones. What were you getting into first, or did you always have a love for photography, or did you always want to be an author? Or?
So I think art has definitely been with me since I was a little. I was always drawing or painting or sketching or writing stories that, you know, there's one in particular I still have in a box somewhere downstairs, but it was about a unicorn who has to fix the spring that's in the forest has been contaminated, and she has to fix it. So I've always been a little bit fantastical. I think it was like 3rd grade or 5th grade or something. But so those are things I had always done. And then when I was just before I had my second kiddo, so about 15, 16 years ago, a friend of mine said, you should try photography. And I was like, I'll give it a try. And I had this little Sony Cybershot. It was this little digital camera.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yes. And so I just photographed everything, like bees on flowers and telephone poles with power lines, but make it art, you know. anything that I could make. And then pretty soon folks started asking me to photograph them, either to take pictures of their family or to photograph their wedding. And it just kind of expanded and expanded. And I realized at that point that while I loved being able to give people things that they loved, it didn't fulfill the artistic side of the reason I picked up a camera in the first place. So I went through several different phases with photography, everything from shooting events to weddings and then baptisms and birthday parties and families. And then I started shooting fashion and beauty. And it wasn't until I moved, well, I did a few things in Colorado. I think that was kind of a transitionary period. And then when I moved here to New Mexico, I think is when I started producing some of the work that felt the most like me in terms of like visual and aesthetic style and the kind of creativity that I wanted to be part of, because I was making a lot of things as well. I was making sets and building costumes and, you know, just making props, all the kinds of things that go into all of that. So at that point, I felt like I started to be where I wanted to be in my career. And at that point, I had actually written 2 novels. So I had written and self-published 2 novels by then. Didn't know what I was doing, really, just kind of was writing what I wanted to write and pooping it out into the world and hoping somebody found it. Because, as I mentioned, I had been writing since the time I was young, but I wasn't taking it very seriously because at that point I was earning my money as a photographer and then as a freelance writer for an online photography magazine. So things were starting to hit their peak, like where I wanted them to go. And then COVID hit. And of course, nobody was working with anybody. And I have anxiety. So COVID made things extra bad for me. And I barely photographed anyone. I didn't definitely for like a year. And then after that, when I did, it was outside and I was using a long lens so I could stand far away. And then when things got a little bit better, it was still outside, but everybody was in masks. And so it just made it really, really difficult to continue pursuing that comfortably. And so during that time, I focused on digital art and I focused on writing. And about halfway through, I think, was the point I realized that if we were going to live the life I wanted to live, which is to be able to travel, you know, with my husband, then I needed to have a job that was more mobile. And I also needed to have something that was scalable, but also something that could tell a deeper story, a broader story than what my photographs could. And I don't have any intention of stopping being a photographer, but being an author was the way that I kind of realized that need, and also then brought all of my deeper kind of childhood penchant for storytelling, like brought that to life more. And I look forward to being able to photograph scenes from my books someday. But for now, I'm really just writing a million books, and then crafting whenever I get the chance. I should show you some of my goodies.
Yes, I'd love to, because you know, anytime you want to come on and lead like a creepy crafting night, that would be awesome.
That would be so fun.
I've done quite a few, but I haven't the last year, so I haven't done really any. So I need to get into doing those again. Yeah, you got some handy to show? I
do actually. Oh, yeah, 1 second and I will grab them.
Yep.
I might be able to reach them without leaving the audio. Haha. I'll grab this guy because he's super fun. And one of these. Okay. I may even have to turn the lights off for us to be able to see this properly to make it really its best life. But so there's a dragon skull inside there.
Oh.
And if I turn him on, ooh.
Cute. And those are those like the ones I commented on one of your posts where you made the little mushrooms.
Yes.
Glue. Is that what you did here too?
Yeah, it is hot glue. It is hot glue and alcohol ink. And it's so simple. And then the dragon skull, I just sculpted out of clay.
That is amazing. I love it.
So fun. And it sits over there with my oddments. It's in my very witchy spot where I have things like this.
What is this? Oh, invisibility potion.
Yeah. Hey, let me see if I can get the goodies swirling in there. There they go.
Oh yeah, that's
It
cool.
probably has to slow down a little bit, but
You have
can
glitter in
combine.
there, or
It is actually, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it's food safe. So you can paint it on your foods. It's very, very pretty, and it's just swirls really beautifully. I think the gold one probably shows it best, but all you have to do is give it a little swirl. And if you combine the colors, so if you use something like a gold dust and a green, like food coloring in the liquid, then when the dust settles, it stays green. And when you swirl it, it turns colors because of the dust. So it's super, super fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah, I noticed that other one, and I was watching it. I'm like, that looks so easy, which it probably isn't as easy as to look, but I'm like, I would have, did you just think of that on your own, or did you see that somewhere with those mushrooms like that?
I
Like
had seen a
little
glowing mushroom. So
wired.
they had not done it that way, but I had seen someone do it. And I was like, how did they do that? It looks like hot glue, and then started just figuring out, well, if I wanted to do that, how would I do it? And I even have one somewhere that I used glow in the dark hot glue so that it would glow
Oh.
anyway, even if you didn't turn the lights on. So I and after that, so that video went viral. And it got 2 million views, and then a bunch of people started making them and tagging me in them, and it was really fun because they were doing their own take on the whole process, which was great. So it was just really cool to see one little throwaway crafting thing come to life and have so many people make magical things to make their life more magical. I thought that was really great.
I know what you mean. Like when I've been, I don't know, doing photography for a long time, but always kind of more as a hobby, or I went to school for it and stuff, but then I got sidetracked with getting married and having kids. And then I work in the healthcare field for 25 years, and it's not my thing, but it's paying the bills. So, I got that. But I've been trying more and more the last quite a few years to get into it. But I knew I never really wanted to do like the weddings and senior pictures and all that. It just, to me, that wasn't fun, really. I mean, I have done some, senior pictures and stuff, but yeah, it's not like what I want to do. Did you have your own studio though at the time, even when you were doing more of the artsy stuff, or did you just do it in your house, or?
Sure. So when I lived in Washington State, I was shooting both on location, and then I turned a room in my house into an office/studio so I could do portraiture and things in there. When we moved to Colorado Springs, I helped found and open up a photography studio with a couple of friends of mine, which was fantastic. And it was a shared space for a while. It was really great. And then when I moved to New Mexico, they switched up, and now they have a whole production company, which is outstanding. But and then when we moved here, this is the first, well, I should say in Washington State, I also shot in my garage. I kind of built a studio in my garage, and then I did the same thing when we moved here. And it's mobile, so I can break it down and set it back up in order to kind of put it away so that my husband can still change the oil. He did not like the semi-permanent nature of my studio in Washington State. He felt like I was taking up his space. But so it's down there, and it's kind of semi-mobile. And then if I need to build something, I mean, that's part of the fun of being a creative, right? If I have something I want to make and I need to make props or grab things from the thrift store or whatever, I can set everything up and shoot in there, and then a couple days later take it all down.
So do you have just stacks and stacks of costumes and props and everything all over somewhere?
Yeah. I have a whole rack down there that is full of crowns and costumes that are hanging up on the wall, and just everything that gets in the way, basically. So
do you feel like, so some of your photo shoots, I know that that are like more fantasy or styled, like you might have a makeup artist, a costume designer, multiple people. So how does that come together usually? Are you the one that gets people, finds people to do it with you, or is it something other people are asking you to photograph, or both, or something else?
Yeah, so I'm not actively shooting now, so it's been a little while, but when I was active, I was shooting for myself. So I would have an idea that I wanted to add to my portfolio. I would reach out to people in the local community and find out if anybody was interested in that idea. So if that was also the kind of thing they would like to add to their book. And if so, then we would essentially all just collaborate and I would let everybody know my vision. And the makeup artist would share with me what she needed and her ideas. And then the model would come in and, sometimes we would do fittings or we would test things out. But for the most part, it usually was me essentially as project manager, finding who we needed, getting everybody together, sending out call sheets, making up schedules, making sure there was going to be things like food and sunscreen and water and, just kind of bringing everybody together to make sure that it could happen. And that could be as simple as folks showing up for several shoots in one day in my garage, or as complicated as a group of 4 to 5 models plus makeup artists, hairstylists, tents, all of that kind of stuff, traveling out into the desert and hauling all of our things in wagons out to some location and shooting there. So it's been all across the board, but in every circumstance, it usually is me, unless I have a client who is hiring me. And then in that case, it depends. Either I'm still the project manager and everything funnels through me. So I may hire the film crew and everybody else, and then I'm still managing, but the client pays everyone directly, or the client just brings me in and they already have the team. So it kind of depends on what their preferences are and what they need me for.
If you're doing one where it's you yourself putting it kind of together, so then I'm assuming everybody, like, you're not paying people, they're just all getting kind of the exposure from the pictures with their, like ad kind of like, advertising for them. Is that how it works?
Sure. Yeah, it depends. So when we're doing, they're called trade shoots or portfolio shoots, and that's where everybody essentially is getting paid in photos because actors I have worked with, models that I have worked with have used my photos to get jobs, to help launch separate parts of their careers. A friend of mine who is an actor, some of the images that we took were really instrumental in getting him work. A friend of mine who is a model, the work that we made together was kind of instrumental in getting her where she is at now, or I should say starting the journey from where she is at now. So, those trade shoots can be really incredibly beneficial for people, because you now have work that if you had to pay the makeup artist, the hairstylist, the model, everybody, could be cost prohibitive. Mm-hmm. So in those cases, everybody's working together with the goal being the photo. And then there are times where I want to shoot something and I want full creative control and I want full creative control of the images. And in that case, then I will pay the model or pay the team so that I have the image and I can do with it what I want, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. If you do it where you're not really paying the other people, then you can't really sell that image, or.
So the copyright always remains with the photographer as the creator, the person who pushed the button. So, but however, in those circumstances, if you're a good photographer, or maybe I should say, if you're a ethical person. Yeah, if you're ethical, you try to do what's best for the people that you are working with. So if the model were to say, hey, I'm not really happy with these, I wouldn't really like them to go out into the world, then as somebody who cares about people and also values your career, then you say, okay, I understand that. Most of the time, that understanding should be done beforehand. Everyone should know what the images are for, how many they're getting, when to expect them, what you're going to do with them, all of that kind of stuff. Right. And generally, you will have a model sign a release form so that you're agreeing that you have the right to use their likeness for these purposes. And then if you decide afterwards to do something, there have been a couple of times where somebody wanted to license a photograph that I had taken. So World Builders reached out to me based on a photo I took of a model friend of mine. And we just got together for a weekend to play and put costumes on and make fun stuff. And they really liked the image and wanted to sell it. And so they reached out to me to license it. And we all decided to do it as a donation because it's World Builders is a charity. But had we not, then she would have needed to be paid as well, as it's her likeness that they would be making money off of. So there's definitely times where afterwards then you need a broader release, and then you pay the model or the makeup, all of those folks as well, so
Right.
that everything is copacetic for the whole team. My rule is, if I get paid, everybody gets paid. And there have been times where I've taken out of my paycheck to make sure everybody else was paid, because I just feel like it's not ethical for me to make money and them to not make money.
Right. I mean, it seems like kind of weird questions, I guess, but for me, and I think for a lot of people in our group, we have so many artists in the group, but everybody, not everyone, but a lot of people are always just kind of on that brink of, kind of like a part-time gig or, a side hustle kind of thing. And finding that way to get more exposure or to make it more legit is, in my experience, for sure, like kind of a wall that I have a problem getting around or up and over.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's more of a psychological thing, like, the usual, like, I'm not good enough to really do that, or if it's like, if you don't have a business background, or if you don't have a family that was in, teaching you business and you didn't go to college or anything for it, it's very daunting to get into that aspect of it where you're charging people, or you're, having contracts, or, different things like that. And even just putting yourself out there on social media, that right there is hard sometimes, for a lot of people, and for me.
Yeah.
I gotta adjust this a little bit, because I don't know, I feel like I'm super bright. Okay, that's a little better. So you have had quite a bit of success with the photography. I just want to stick with the photography thing for a little bit yet, because I think you are fair. I mean, I have followed your accounts and stuff for a long time, but it's like you follow a lot of people where you don't really get the details of their life or whatever, what they're doing.
Sure.
But like, you've been on, it's not Pro EDU, is it? Or you've been involved with, is it Pro EDU? With different, pretty big time. And have you worked with Adobe itself too with some things, or?
No, I haven't taught for Adobe or anything, but I wrote for F-Stoppers for a long time.
Oh, F-Stoppers,
then,
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and then I've written some for Adorama as a freelance writer, and I taught a kind of mini tutorial with F-Stoppers for their YouTube channel. I've been featured in a few things, so definitely kind of been seen around a little bit.
How do you get started being like a writer for something like that? Do you just send them work and see what they think first? Send them articles yourself, and then just see if it's something they're interested in?
Yeah, so with let's say for F-Stoppers, for example, they'll often let folks know when they're hiring writers, and so at that point you just kind of follow their process, which is generally give them examples of your writing, examples of your work, etc. And then they approve you at that point, and then you write for them. And some folks stay on as staff writers for a long time, which is, I was staff writer for a little while, and then a senior writer for a little while, and then worked with Pro EDU as the community lead, and also writing blog posts, managing emails, things like that. And so once you, I think you get to a point where you say, is it worth it to fail at this? And if the answer is yes, then you just go whole hog, and you send people your stuff, and you tell them who you are, and you put yourself in front of the people that you want to work with. And if they say no, then it's no, but at least and then you can make decisions, right? So they hired me, and I worked for them for a while, and of course that brought me some great opportunities to meet people. And I think the biggest thing that changed that was I started going to conventions, and so I met folks that I only knew online, and was introduced to their friends, and you get to meet people that you would have never expected to meet, and form those connections. And now at this point, I'm really blessed and humbled to have a wide connection of photography industry friends that sometimes I look at the things they do and I'm like, how did this even happen? Like, how do I have friends that are this cool?
Yeah.
but it all begins with just that choice of, is it worth failing at? Then I'm going for it. And I certainly have failed many, many times, but those teach you sometimes where you're not supposed to be. And sometimes they're just opportunities that are not meant for now. And so you do the thing, and meeting people and taking those risks, I think, are the biggest parts of getting yourself where you want to go in almost any industry.
And really just pushing yourself to past that point of being uncomfortable, and just like, you sometimes just have to push and push. And
yeah, you're scared.
And just cross your fingers and be like, whatever.
Yeah. In a way, you kind of have to let go of the outcome and just go and let whatever will be. And my experience so far has been, first, most people aren't willing to do that. And so when you become willing to do that, you are already putting yourself at the 50% mark, right? Just because some folks are not ready yet, or what. My children, some folks are not ready yet, or whatever, for whatever reason. So that already puts you above those folks. And then if you're willing then to fail and to meet people and to network and to make those connections, well, then you jump even more, because half the folks who were there, maybe they just got up the courage to get that far, but they're still not ready to put themselves in front of the people they admire yet, or to say hi, or to send that email. And so when you do that, all of a sudden you jump up again. And then if you're on time, and if you're personable, and if you're kind, and you care about people, and if the connections you make are genuine and they're not mercenary, so you're not going into it with how do I get this connection so I can use these people, but
Right.
How do I know this person and be of service to this person and, be valuable for this person? Those genuine connections then build, and all of a sudden you have people who will recommend you for things, and people who will, push work your way if they can't do it. I have amazing friends who have had people approach them and say, well, I'm busy and I can't do this, but let me tell you about my friend. And that all of a sudden becomes this really beautiful reciprocal community where not only are you friends with people, but you're helping one another as well. So, and it all starts with going salto mortale, which is the leap into the void.
Yeah, exactly. I think I want to pull up some of your pictures I have, and then I'm going to share screen, because I just want to talk about some of them because they're so cool.
Thank you.
So just hold on a second here. This one, I'm going to pull up both of these because all right, so I'm going to share screen. See if this works. Okay. So can you see?
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So I thought I love seeing before and after pictures, or like sometimes on my composites, I like make a picture with all the little pictures around it, like that went into it.
Right.
This is you, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And this is the before picture. Did you do your own makeup and stuff for this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This was all pandemic stuff.
Gotcha. And then
a friend of mine put together a group called it was called the Alchemist Library, and it was a bunch of photographers from all over the place, and we just did short tutorials on how we make stuff.
Awesome. And then this is your after. So
yes.
From this to this, you mostly use Photoshop, I'm guessing, or
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And as you go, are you just kind of, do you find yourself usually just playing around with things, or do you have it in mind, like I'm going to do this with my cheek, or I'm going to do, neon this or that, or do you just play around more with it?
So for shots like this, I absolutely always have a plan going in advance. That way, when I shoot it, I put the light in the right place, and I plan out what I'm going to wear, and or the model, what the outfit is or the costume, what the makeup should be like, what props should be used. That pistol is a laser tag gun that my kiddos have that I mod. So I painted it and made it look a little more sci-fi. So this was all meant to be, cyberpunk type stuff. So I knew in advance, which is why the lights are gelled blue, and it's hard. And it's not as if this is, the most attractive photo of me. It's very grungy, and I didn't take it to be pretty, right? It's a character.
Right.
And the same thing is true when I work with my models.
Your first two books, you said you published quite a while ago. You self-published, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Book number 1, I self-published in 2018. Book number 2, I think was at the end of 2019. And then book number 3 was in 2022.
That's the trilogy thing that you did?
Yes. Yeah. First trilogy. Had the idea for it, and then started writing it, and had no idea what I was doing. I was just writing a book, and I knew I was going to self-publish it because I'm too impatient to query agents, and I also don't like gatekeepers. So I just did my own thing, and you could say that it is a miserable failure, just in terms of it never even has earned out the money that I put into making them. But to be fair, everybody writes many books before they finally write the book that is going to be, the one that brings them, let's just say, salience. But so it was experience, and I wrote a story that I loved, and the people that have read it really, really enjoyed it. I didn't know anything at the time about things like writing to market, or what genre expectations are, or how to market yourself, or anything. I just did the thing, learned a lot of lessons, very many lessons. But yes, so 2018 was the first year that I published.
And so does that go like Amazon publishing, or how do you?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was Amazon, and then also wide. So there's a company called Ingram Spark, and they are kind of the company that does the printing and distribution for most books. So if you go to a library or a bookstore, they probably have ordered those copies through Ingram Spark. So I had books that were the paperback versions and the hardback versions were published through Ingram Spark, and then the ebook was published through Amazon. Okay. They're still on Amazon. In fact, right now, for the next just about a month, the trilogy is in Kindle Unlimited. So for folks who are Kindle Unlimited members, they can go and read those things as part of their membership. After that, I will be pulling them off. They will be going back to wide distribution, and then I will also be selling them direct through my website and through my members area, where people are they pay a monthly membership fee, and then they essentially get everything that I can give them. So they get my ebooks, they get the chapters of the current book I'm writing as I'm writing it. They get my entire backlist and library, all of like the cool stuff that you want if you're going to be part of a membership.
What's the name of the trilogy? The different books.
It is called the Founding Trilogy.
Okay. When you went into it, did you realize it was going to be a trilogy, or did you?
Yes,
you did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like, I can't even imagine having a story in my head that long or that thought out, where it would be like, this is going to be book 1, this is book 2. Like, I cannot imagine. That's like, how long were you thinking about it, or how long was the story in your brain, kind of?
So, it actually starts relatively simple. Just like with anything, you have a general idea, and then you ask yourself, what if? And then you ask yourself, well, how do you get to there? So what if multiverse theory was true, and there are different versions of Earth? And when you Schrodinger's cat something, that's when the new version appears, right? The version where the cat is still alive, and in your world, the cat is not. And if you make these decisions, these big decisions to drop the atomic bomb, or to invade somewhere, or to run for president, I mean, these are big decisions that have big consequences. So if those worlds split, what would happen to that other version of you, and what kind of life would they live? And what if you could visit? I mean, what if you could go back and forth? How would you do that? How would physics even allow something like that to happen? And if there were people who could do that and they met one another, what would that mean? Like, you could leave your world with all of your advanced technology and understanding of science and show up in a world that never had an industrial revolution and change everything or take over a continent. So how would these people function? And if they met one another, would they build some kind of society of travelers, of people who could walk back and forth? And what would that look like? What if somebody abused those abilities? Would the people who knew how to do that, would they try to stop you? I mean, just all of these questions would start popping up. And then you continue to ask yourself those questions and explore the answers. And that's essentially what the first trilogy is an exploration of that idea, ultimately coming back to the power of your decisions, the consequences of your choice, and the idea that your true power is not necessarily in your strength or your magic or your anything else. It's in your choices. And so that's really an exploration of that idea with the background of science fantasy. I knew that it was going to be 3, but I didn't think to myself, I want to write, what is it? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to write 390,000 words. You just kind of go until it's done, until you know it's going to end about here.
And you published you published the first one and then you wrote the next one in that like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you were like working on the second or third one, did you ever think you came up with a different idea about something else and you're like, oh, I can't do that because of the first one I didn't have this, or something like that? Or did you ever think back, oh, I wish I would have had them do
most
this
of the
instead?
new ideas became new books.
Oh
yeah, most of the ideas became new books. When you're writing the third book in a trilogy that you have not planned in advance, your whole goal in life is to make everything work. Like, how do I take what happened in the last 2 books and still make it work now? Because you can't at that point go back and fix it. So yeah, much head scratching and many long walks of just trying to puzzle till my puzzler was broken.
And then now you have you have the other, like I had a picture of them on there. The 2 that was it Blood something?
Oh, Blood and Silver.
Yeah. So is that a separate book or is that part of another series or something?
It is a companion novel. So the series that I'm working on right now is called The Gwen St. James Affair. And it's a Gaslamp fantasy. It's 6 books. It was planned 6 books. They've all been plotted in advance. And in fact, I'm in the middle of book 5.
Wow.
So yeah, I wrote them quickly in advance. I drafted them really quickly because I wanted to be able to do exactly what you said. I learned my lesson with that first trilogy. I wanted to be able to write for continuity. So if I got to book 5 and I realized something was wrong, I wanted to be able to go back to book 1 and fix those things in between. So that was all planned in advance. And then I also knew that I wanted to write some things that were a little bit more romance, and I wanted to give more people an inroad to that trilogy. And the side characters in the Gwen St. James Affair are really, really interesting people. And so the side characters, Alex and Cyrus, it's a romance, it's a fantasy romance, and then they appear in the Gwen St. James Affair in several different books. And so if you want to, you can go read about how they met. So that's what that is. It's a Little Red Riding Hood retelling.
Oh. Yeah, I think on was it on your website or where I did it, but I remember where I got it from. Like I could sign up to get like the first chapter.
Oh yeah, like the first 5 chapters or something. Yeah.
Do you want to tell people where they can do that or how they can get that?
Sure. If they just go to NicoleYork.com and scroll around, they will see the books on there. And there's a members area at the top. So if somebody decides they want to be able to read all of that stuff, they can do that in the members area. The main character is Lady Guinevere St. James.
How did you come up with the name? Did you already have right away knew what you wanted to name her?
No. So she was birthed immediately in my head when I saw a very particular hat that was created by an artist called Lollabug Designs. If you've never seen her work, I highly encourage people to Google it, because it is so whimsical and magical and organic. Oh, I die to someday own one of her hats. But I had seen a particular hat. A friend of mine was like, look at these, you would love them. I saw the hat. I was completely enchanted, and I wondered, like, who would wear a hat like this? Like, who could get away with this? You know, this was before I decided to like embrace my Hobbit self and wear whatever I wanted to. But at the time, I wondered who would be the person to wear this. And she just popped into my head. And because it was made kind of in the style of a trilby, which is, you know, it made me think of early turn of the century.
Mhm.
And then I just saw her, and she was standing there in my mind in a walking skirt and a vest and a kind of Edwardian era blouse. And she's looking back over her shoulder, and she's grinning this cheeky grin, and the wind is blowing. Like, everything was happening in my head. And I saw her, and I was like, oh, in my head, I'm in love with her. I don't know who she is, but like, she has a story that needs to be told. And then I really puzzled over her name for a while and tried to figure out what is the name for this really compelling person. And Guinevere was the name I finally came up with. Her name didn't happen any particularly special way, but the hat was the birth
Yeah.
of the character.
So also I wanted to ask about your book covers. You didn't make the book covers, you said, or you didn't do any of them, I don't think, yourself?
No. The book covers for the Founding Trilogy is a licensed art that I licensed specifically for that purpose. Although I did do the original art on the first two, which was not a good idea. Being a good artist does not make you a good book cover artist, which is a thing I had to learn. That is a very particular skill set that you have to build over time. I'm much better at it now, but at the time I was not. So I did those myself. It was a mistake. I found some great art and licensed that art. And then for this series, I reached out to an artist I had worked with before. She a photograph that I took of myself, she did the drawing, the digital painting of it. And after working with her, I was like, I'm just in love. I need you to do my book covers when they're ready. Would you please do them? And she agreed. I mean, I don't know how I imagined to like strong arm her into doing 6 book covers in a row for me, but I did. And I love them so desperately. She's so talented. Her name is Elena Nidleva, but I think once my commissions are finished, she's taking a break, but people should definitely follow her and, you know, wait until she's open, and when she is, pay her.
But do you have like her Instagram or anything?
Oh, I can pull that up actually. I believe I think it's Elena's art, but I'll double check real quick. Excuse me. Yes, I am. It's trying to tell me I'm not logged in. It's very confused.
So I was wondering if the picture of her on the cover kind of matched what you had in your head.
Yes. So her Instagram is Elena, ELENA .Nidleva, NEDELEVA. And I had done a piece of art of Gwen, and I sent that to her as a reference for when she started doing the character.
Oh, okay. Did she do your other books then too?
Just this series, just
okay.
Just the Gwen St. James affair.
What is, just out of curiosity, like the biggest difference between making art in general or art for a book cover?
Yeah, so art for book covers first has to be it has to fit within the genre expectations for that book. So it's important to remember that a book cover is not primarily a piece of art. A book cover is marketing material. It's packaging. So that needs to fit what readers of that particular genre. So if somebody expects certain things from sci-fi, but more specific than that, they expect certain things from hard near future sci-fi, and they expect certain things from fantasy, but they expect even more particular things from steampunk, right, in sci-fi. So like it's not just the broad genre, but it is the smaller genre classification. And then if it is an adult, or if it is YA, if it is steamy, if it, there's all of these different expectations that go into that. So number one, you have to know that. You have to do your research and find out what is currently selling in that field, so that the book that, or the cover art you create then also fits neatly within that. And everybody kind of thinks, well, I want my book cover to stand out. No, you don't. You don't want that. You think you do, but you don't, because you're thinking like an artist and not like a marketer, which is what book cover design is. So that, I think, is a big part of it. And then it's important for the cover to also represent what the book feels like. So in a big way, the cover is a promise to the reader that the book is going to feel like this. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that, it should give you a good idea of how the book feels to read. But then also, as far as the art is concerned, it has to be really eye-catching. It has to look great in a thumbnail size, which means it has to have like a very strong composition and tonal composition and use of color and all of that stuff. So it's a lot more complex than what it would be if I was just to make a piece of art that I liked. And maybe it's a great piece of art, but it's not book cover art. So it's definitely, it has its own set of expectations that you have to keep in mind if it's going to be effective. It might still be a beautiful piece of art, but it may not be effective for selling books. And that's kind of the kicker.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now you have one or two more to go, you said, of the series. Do you have ideas in mind already for other books you want to do?
Yeah. I always have them. So there are some characters.
This is going to be a long-term projects for you, I guess. Something your hope really that you can keep writing for, years and years and years.
Oh, forever.
Yeah.
For always. And I keep telling stories, no matter how I have to tell them. But this series, definitely there are secondary characters and even point of view characters who will be getting their own books. And then some side characters will be getting their own books because they're just too fascinating to not write about. And then there are a couple of other books. I've already written 7 chapters of a cozy fantasy that is absolutely good to be just sweet and heartfelt. And imagine if the movie Big Fish took place in the Shire. That's what that's going to feel like. And then there's a book that I had to shelf before I started writing the Founding Trilogy. I loved the story. It was really super meaningful to me, but I realized as I got toward the end that I wasn't good enough to write it yet. I wasn't good enough to do it justice. So I had to shelf that. And that is waiting impatiently for me to come back to it. So I feel like after I finish this series and get my goodies out there, I think by that time I will be kind of prepared to go and tackle that work again.
Is there a lot of marketing involved? Like, with your books, do you have to try to get like newspapers or, even like local TV things or whatever, try to get them to have you on or have you promote your books, or is it more just social media? Is that the biggest thing?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely still reach out. You can make a media kit and reach out to local newspapers and, all of that good stuff. That's definitely a thing that you can do. It's always great to have a media kit for, any instances like that. But I have found that going where your readers are is the most productive way to market. And right now, the book community is really, really strong on TikTok. So that's where I have been. There are also lots of Facebook readers group that are, highly specialized to the genres and things that they love. And that is a great place to go. And of course, you have to be part of the community. You cannot just show up to take advantage of what other people have built. You have to be a useful part of the community and a contributing part of the community. But those places tend to be really excited and really supportive of authors as well. So those, I think, are great places to go and make those connections and help people find your work that way. There is much involved up to and including continuing to love on the people who have already supported you and give them more, more things to love and continue to develop those relationships and build that community, which is what I'm really interested in. So lots of marketing and testing everything and finding out what works for me and what doesn't, and where I'm strong and where I'm not, what things I need to rely on paid ads for and what things I can do myself. And that's what this book series is kind of designed to do. This is my re-entry into the market as a book publisher and not just an author who has written some stuff. And so I'm learning a lot with this experience. It's testing and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So is TikTok your biggest thing, you think, as far as social media?
I mean, so it's interesting. I'd say the biggest and most effective thing right now is my current network of people that I have built over years and years as a photographer, because what I have learned is most of us make the mistake of trying to sell to people who make the same things we do. We are a photographer and we're in the photography community and we're trying to get photographers to buy our work. And it's like, guys, they can do that for themselves. Like they don't need you for photographs. However, most photographers can't draw. And so during the pandemic, the biggest way that I made money was by other photographers reaching out to me for art. They wanted illustrations of themselves and they wanted logos drawn and they wanted, these things that they could not do. And my photography friends are incredibly supportive with my novels. They buy my novels and they tell people about my novels and they talk about them. And so that, just like cultivating those things and of course I support them as well. And so it's like I was talking about earlier, is that reciprocal relationship that continues to benefit everybody. So that is the first, I think the first thing is those people. And then outside of that, TikTok has definitely been the biggest as far as not just getting the word out about my books, but also, like I said, the community aspect. I've met a lot of really fantastic people who I'm working with now. Both of the narrators that I've worked with, the narrator for Vanished and for Blood and Silver, I met that way. They just really loved my work and wanted to be able to work with me. All of my ARC readers and the members of my readers group, I mean, a significant amount of them came from those spaces. So it's been really incredibly beneficial for sure.
Do you have certain authors that you grew up reading or that you think are a big influence on you, or that made you like kind of think, oh, I want to do this or try it when you were younger or anything?
Yeah. So I wanted to write books even before I was a big reader. And that was because I think I wanted things and experiences that it was impossible for me to have in the way that I grew up. And so I would imagine those worlds for myself and write them. And then even as a teenager, when I was a reader at that point, it wasn't necessarily other books that made me want to write. It was wanting things I couldn't have that made me want to write and to be able to be in those worlds and have those experiences. And the desire to create, I think, was most aptly fulfilled by movies. So The Labyrinth and Willow and Legend and all of these really fantastic 80s fantasy movies. Those did it for me. And then my 6th grade English teacher, Mr. Smith, who I have been in contact with off and on since I was in 6th grade, because he just had that much of an impact on me. I called him after I published my books and told him I did it. I just wanted you to know that I did it, because he was one of those teachers who really was a foundational, he helped me love writing, not just reading, but writing and what writing could do and the techniques and the freedom of it. So I loved the reading, but he's the one who helped me love writing.
Everybody has that one or two teachers in their life, right? That you just always remember or think about, or really help you out.
Yes.
If there's someone out there that has been, thinking about trying to write a book, or they have an idea for a book and they're, trying to think about how they go about it, like what would you give them for advice, or like just kind of just how to start and what to do?
So first, I would say the important thing to recognize is the way you write your first book is not probably going to be the way you write your best book. So don't think it needs to be perfect. It just needs to be done. And the process of writing it is as much a learning process as it is a creative process. So try something, and if it doesn't work, try a new thing. Just don't stop. And that's really the only key, is to just not stop. And you don't have to shoot for the moon. Like my first published book was really the first book I fully wrote and finished, and it's 130 some odd thousand words. And that is a big monster of a book to write on your first go. It's okay to aim for something that's 60,000 words. And then, you know, my first books, I pantsed them. So I had an idea and I knew where I was going, and then I just had to fill in the blanks to get there. But that causes its own set of problems. And then I realized as I was finishing that I needed a better mix. I needed to actually plot things and plan some things in advance so that I knew where I was going, which allowed me to write much faster. So I wrote a book in a month rather than a book in a year. And it gave me a lot more clarity on the themes that I wanted to explore and all of these things. I didn't know that with my first book. Those things came as just a part of the process. So it doesn't matter if it's messy. It doesn't matter if it's great. It doesn't matter if you did it perfectly. It just matters that you did it. And then all of the lessons that you learn from that, you'll put those into your next book, and you'll just get better as you go. So really just do it. It's just go. Don't judge yourself. Just write it, get it out there.
Yeah. We were talking earlier before we started about how I had signed up on the Artist Forge
Yes.
for a Photoshop class. I love Photoshop and I feel like I'm pretty good at it, but yet I feel like I'm constantly learning new things to do, or how to do things. It's like a never ending, you know.
Yes.
So is the Artist Forge something that is at your website, or that you're giving with someone else, or how does that work?
Yeah. So I am the founder of the Artist Forge. And it started off essentially during COVID. When Clubhouse took off, I was using that as a way to keep me going on my morning walks. So I walk for 3 miles in the morning, and I wanted somebody to walk with. I wanted somebody to talk to. I didn't want to do it by myself. And so I would jump on Clubhouse, and every morning for about an hour, because that's about how long it takes to walk 3 miles if you're not, just really chugging, I would get on and people would join me and we would talk about stuff. And then I had a group of folks who would show up regularly and always contribute really well. And so I asked them if they wanted to come on and host it with me. And for a year and a half, I think, we got together every morning, 5 days a week for an hour. And I essentially hosted a morning talk show. And then as we started having more people and regular people, and there started being questions, and people wanted to know things like, how do you handle failure? And if you're trying to build a business, what do you do? And we had this incredible group of people. And so it became more. And so the Artist Forge now is essentially a collective of creatives, and we focus, instead of focusing on learning technique, we focus on mindset. So how do you learn to think like an artist, and how do you learn to deal with your artist self? So I don't really need to know how to render light on this thing, because that's a technique I can learn, but I need to know how to overcome my imposter syndrome, and I need to know how to handle my fear of failure, and I need to know how other artists failed and what they did and what worked for them, and how do they decide what to charge, and just all of the kind of the life of being an artist that's not necessarily related to the technique.
Right.
And that's kind of the main focus. But then we also realized that because we were such a diverse group of creatives from many different fields, we also had some really incredible people with us, like Dennis, who is a commercial retoucher, and he retouches, Hollywood movie posters, and does commercial advertisements for big companies. And so he's kind of an invaluable resource. And that's a way that we can give to the community. We can continue to give to the community. And one of the kind of tenets of that is also to support the artist. So the Artist Forge may be the platform, but we only take 20% of the take, and that is just to cover the cost of operation. Everything else goes to the artist, because I don't like big platforms who take all of the money that they make off of the back of artists and then don't support the artists properly or fairly. So that is the goal, to build that community, to help artists become what they want to be, and then also to support the artists who build the community.
Mm-hmm. Do you have different people on? Are you still in the Clubhouse thing, or is Clubhouse still a thing? I don't know.
No, yeah.
Okay,
So we as we started getting busier, the individuals, so myself, Becca Bjorky, Matt Stagliano, and Bassam Sabah, who are the kind of hosts, we started getting, as lockdown kind of went away, we all started getting really, really busy, and we weren't able to get together as often. So right now it's every Monday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, so noon for the West Coast. We started getting together, and now we have those talks live online in our Facebook group.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to check that out more, because it sounds like something I really would like to listen in on, and
yeah, there's
there
a
a lot of
bunch
things
podcasts out as well.
Yeah, like everybody that is an artist, so to speak, is struggles with all those kinds of things. Like you said, even things like, how do I charge, or what am I gonna, all that kind of stuff. Or
yeah,
why do I feel like I should be doing this?
Right. Yes, that is
What makes me feel like I know what I'm doing,
Yes.
Yeah,
where did I get the audacity?
Yeah, what am I thinking? Yeah, great. That sounds awesome. So I know you have, is it your IG that is Nicole York Creates?
Yeah. So
or what are you want to give out your
Nicole? Sorry, go ahead.
You want to just give out your different, how to find you on different
Oh,
platforms?
sure. Yeah. So if you Google Nicole York, I am the one who will pop up. But NicoleYork.com has, all of my information on there. I'm either Nicole York or Nicole York Creates on everything. So it's pretty easy to find me.
Okay. Perfect. All right. And you're having a launch party for your newest book. This is the second one, is it?
The first one.
Oh, this is the first one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that is.
So it'll be coming out. When is it?
Yes. So it launches on the 18th. So this coming Tuesday, April 18th. And we are having a launch party in my readers group, which is the Readers Lounge with Nicole York on Facebook. We are doing that at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, so 6 p.m. for the West Coast and 9 p.m. for the East Coast. And we're going to do some cool giveaway stuff. So I'm going to give away some signed art copies of my book. A couple of authors are also coming on. They're going to do a reading of their own book and give away some goodies. My narrator will also be on. She's going to read some selections from Vanished. And there's my book, actually, the series has a theme song. It has music that was written by my brother, who was a composer, and he wrote this really fantastic steampunk sounding, really cool music that goes with it. It will be in the book as well. So he's going to come on and talk about how you translate something like a book into music that people can, enjoy and listen to. So it should be really, really super fun, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know you sent me an invite to that, I believe. So
yes,
I'm gonna try to get there. During the day, it's kind of hard, with work and everything else. But we'll see. Never know. All right. Well, I guess we will wrap it up. We went well over an hour. So I appreciate you so much coming on here, because it's all very fascinating. I love all your work. I really want to get in, I was very much a reader growing up, and then, at some point you kind of start getting too busy to do certain things, like kids, and everything. But, now I've been so into podcasts lately, the last few years. Constantly listen to podcasts, but now I've started getting to some audiobooks again. So I got, that's another step. And then eventually I have to take some time for myself to do some more reading, because I used to just love it so much. So maybe your
Yes.
book will be the entryway for me to get back into it.
There is
Hopefully.
an audiobook, so it will be coming out. It is in the end stages of production right now. So,
Awesome.
I'm a big audiobook fan as well. That's how I do most of my reading these days.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I have like a half hour each way commute to work and back. So that,
Yeah.
gives me a little time to do that. So, well, perfect. Let me just check on here, make sure I don't see any like questions or anything like that on there. But okay. Well, thanks again. And I look forward to your book coming out. And again, if anybody wants to check out your art or anything else, just look under Nicole York.
NicoleYork.com.
Nicole York Creates and find out all the good things going on. And the Artist Forge, is it theartistforge.com?
Yep.
Okay, so in case they want to check that out too.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nicole. Have a great night and good luck with everything. Your book coming out, and I am excited for you and really
Thank you.
glad, that things are really, it's an exciting time for you. So
Yes.
I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. Thank you. Have a good night. And we will see you soon. Thank you.